So this is going to be supercharging your skills through AI. Um, why listen to me? So I have worked at Atlassian for 6 years and been working in tech for 20 plus years. Atlassian's got loads of customers like NASA, Spotify, Airbnb, etc. And I've been working on AI and a product called Rovo for the past 2 years. So really since Atlassian started diving deep into AI. So not a huge amount of time, but in AI, that's actually quite a long time because it moves very quickly. So probably like 6 years worth in the real world. What we're going to talk about today is what's AI, how I'm using AI, and how I think you could be using AI in your work. So what's AI right now? So there's three different types I really think about AI in the workplace. There's one which is a enhanced search or thinking partner, one which is more of a rough prototyping, and then one which is kind of generative AI, media, that kind of stuff. I'm just gonna stop screen sharing 1 second because my Zoom is in the way. Zoom should really figure out how to change that. Anyway, here we go. So the first type of the super enhanced search thinking partner, that's where you can really ask anything and get good responses back. So examples of that would be ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot. Kind of use cases you're looking at there are brainstorming, writing, summarizing. Then you've got rapid prototyping. We'll have a play of that later on in the presentation. So that's where you can go from an idea to a mock-up really in minutes. It's crazy how fast you can do it. So there's tools like V0, Bolt, Cursor, Lovable. Use cases there are UI, maybe lesson ideas, app ideas, that kind of thing. And then you've got the generative AI. So that's where you're turning text into media. So that's generating images, videos, slides, things like Canva Magic. Kling is a pretty fun one, gives you the ability to create 8 seconds of video. So I've been having fun with that one. ChatGPT's got image capabilities as well. So that's really visual content, creative expression. So those are the three types that I would think about if I were you folks. Um, just zooming out a little bit though, just thinking about AI a bit more holistically. This guy on the right is Alexander the Great, or Colin Farrell playing Alexander the Great. And when he was growing up, he had access to maybe about 20 personal tutors. So if he wanted to go really deep into learning about war. He could go and talk to his personal tutor about war, and if he wanted to do, I don't know, how to battle on elephants, he could go and talk to the personal tutor. And that's how I think about AI. You've got the ability to go really deep into whatever subject you want to. And at this point, with Alexander the Great, he was probably the only person in the world that had access to 20 personal tutors. But now, for me, AI is really leveling the playing field, and everybody's really got access to this. It's just how you use it. Um, so I really believe that AI can amplify access, agency, creativity, but really only if used well. So I'm going to share some tips on how I think it's better to use AI. Um, so for me, how I use AI, the way I really, this has been a bit of a mental shift for me, probably in the last couple of months or so. It's really clicked. Like I said, I've been working on AI for a couple of years. But it's really in the last couple of months that just something in my head changed, and I've really been using AI dramatically more in my workplace. And for me, it's about the way you coach AI. So I've got a robot vacuum cleaner. When I press a button, it goes around my lounge and it sucks up dirt. And if it gets it wrong, like I don't coach the vacuum cleaner to do better, but I do coach ChatGPT and I do coach the tools we built like Rovo. And I find when you make that mental shift and you realize AI is something that you can train, you can work with, it's quite a transformational shift. It's not just a tool, it's a teammate. And starting to think about it as a teammate means you just subtly talk to it differently. And when it gets something wrong, you kind of challenge it and try and work on it together. Um, And that's a really, really powerful shift that I'd really encourage you to do yourself. Um, I think for me as well, the skill of the future really isn't avoiding AI, it's knowing how to coach AI. And I know a lot of people are worried about AI taking jobs. I don't necessarily think AI is going to take jobs, maybe in some like super niche industries. Um, but I think someone who knows how to use AI probably will take your job. It's really that big a change. You know, we're looking at Atlassian at big changes that have happened over the past 20 years. So, you know, mobile is a big change, and proliferation of multiple SaaS tools is a big change, and AI is just a massive change that we're all, I think, only starting to see the impacts of. So, really encourage you folks just to make it part of your day to day, really. Key thing though is you got to think of AI as a puppy. It's really eager, it's fast, it's enthusiastic, but it's not always right. And knowing that it's trying to pattern match and trying to pattern match to your needs, that's really important. You do have to call out BS quite a few times. Um, I find I do this quite regularly. Like you'll kind of say something and give a really confident answer, and I'm like, "That's not quite right," and it goes, "Oh yeah, you're right. I did get it wrong." But you can coach it and change it, and some some of the tools now have got like memories where it can save certain information. Um, but yeah, knowing when to tell AI it's wrong is really important as well. You really have to guide it. So how I'm using AI today, it's three main use cases. The biggest one that's really clicked for me recently is I'm using ChatGPT to write really good prompts for other AI tools. So I'm using tools like Lovable and Bolt and Cursor. These are the prototyping tools. And I found when I'm writing the prompts for these tools, they're okay. But if I ask ChatGPT to write the prompt for the tool, so if I go into ChatGPT and say, hey, I'm going to be building a prototype in V0, help me create it, help me write a really good prompt for the tool for this use case. What ChatGPT will do is it will scan through the internet, it will look through all the guides of how to write good prompts for the tool, and then it'll incorporate that into my prompt. So actually using AI to write prompts, I found really, really powerful. And then what you can do as well is you can like hop between the different tools. Um, again, I'll show you this working in a minute, a real world example. But you'll find the tools, they also write their own prompts of how they're translating your question to their prompts, and then you can take their prompts and go back and forth between the AI. So you're just like daisy chaining together all the different AIs to write really good prompts. And one thing you can do as well, some of these prototyping tools have only got a certain number of prompts you can do a day. But you can hop between the tools, so you can take a prompt from one tool, work on it. When you've run out of your credits or whatever, you can just jump into the next tool and again you can daisy chain it. So I found that works really well. Um, Another thing I'm using AI for, so Atlassian have built a tool called Rovo, which just has access to all of the Atlassian products and all the third-party products that people are connecting up to Atlassian. And we have, like I said, 200,000 customers. We get tons of feedback coming in. So I'm focused on search, and people send lots of feedback around search. Um, I get probably a couple hundred bits of feedback each week about search. And so I use Rovo to synthesize that feedback. So I give it general themes saying, hey, these are like the five buckets of data I want you to categorize in. Go and take a look at all that feedback and categorize it in different themes. And so that can do in 2 minutes what would have taken me 2 or 3 hours a week to do, and just finding that way of just accelerating certain workflows, which would just taken me hours and hours and hours with AI, has been really transformative as well. So again, if there's any large data sets you're looking at, and figuring out ways of using AI to synthesize that to get to insights faster, that's really good. And the final one, so in Atlassian, we're a very public culture. Like everything we do, we work on in the open. So if I write a document, we share it internally, and anybody from my manager to the guy who owns the company, Mike Cannon Brooks, can in theory jump on the page and read it. And so, in the olden days, before AI was a thing, I would write a page, I would send that to my manager, he'd call out some gaps. Maybe one of the higher ups in the company looked at it and were like, "Oh, you haven't thought about this, haven't thought about this." Now, what I can do is I can use AI as a sparring partner. So I can say, "Hey, assume you're this person, like Mike Cannon Brooks, based on all the stuff that you have read before and the kind of feedback you've given, what would you give us some feedback on my document?" And then it's actually the AI using that knowledge from previous conversations and like critiquing your work as if it was your manager essentially. So it's a really psychologically safe way to kind of spar and bounce ideas around without getting told you're crap at your job, basically. So maybe I'm not very good at my job, and so that's why it's good. But I just find that's a really good way of using AI just to bounce ideas around and say, like, hey, can you call out any gaps? Is there anything I missed? Is there anything that people would normally ask about? Um, so, like, as an example, if I'm running an experiment of like, hey, we should test this against this, I can say, hey, go and have a look at all the other experiments that people have run successfully and call out gaps in my experiment. And again, you can have that sparring. So, I found that to be really, really valuable as well. One key thing to think about with AI is there's obviously places where it really helps. There's also places where it hurts. MIT recently did a study saying that if you start a task with ChatGPT, actually can reduce activity in your brain in the areas tied to creativity. So if you're using AI too early, that can result in quite a passive mind. But if you're using AI at the right moment, that becomes a creative accelerator. And so I think looking at the timing is going to be really important. And again, feel free to screenshot any of this. There'll be a video afterwards. But I think if it's, hey, write this thing from scratch, that's probably a little bit too early because that's going to reduce your engagement. If you're midway through, so this is like that sparring use case I talked about, give me ideas to test my thinking. That's really good. That gives you a real productive iteration to your work. And then the end stage, like, hey, help me critique, help me polish, better reflection, better quality. So I try and think about AI that way, like try and do some thinking yourself, but then really using AI to critique your ideas and polish. That will work really well in my experience. Um, so I thought what we would do now is flip over to a bit of a live demo. This is a AI generated image apparently of me. I uploaded my photo, and that's apparently what I look like. All the aliens in the background. I'm not sure why it did that, although I have got aliens on my tattoo, so maybe that's why. But what I thought we'd do is do a live co-creation session using ChatGPT or Rovo, and thinking we could use it to create a prototype of a money tracker, just so you can see how it's working, and then discuss what worked and what didn't. I've also got some prompts and some final thoughts I could share afterwards. Um, but I'll just pause here for a second and stop screen sharing. And if anybody wants to jump into chat and think of a cool idea to prototype, feel free. If not, we'll go with like the idea of a money tracker. So I'll just stop sharing for a second, and then I'll just jump in the chat. Uh, Yeah, it doesn't seem to be anything coming in. So let's for now use that idea of the money planner, for example. So what I would do, I've got ChatGPT here. This is the enterprise version, but honestly, the normal version you could do this as well. So let's say, hi, I'm a recent graduate, I just got a job. Let's be aspirational. I need to help plan my money, looking at my ingoings and outgoings. Um, Try and also help me get some savings. Uh, I don't know, to go on holiday or buy a house or whatever. Holiday or buy a house. And then you can say, I want to make a working prototype in V0. Um, and we can just give it the URL so it knows what we're doing. Um, uh, Please help me with the prompt. Um, and then we'll hit enter. It'll go away thinking about that. Um, One thing I found as well is that V0, you need to give it something that we call grounding, so it doesn't kind of go a bit nuts. Again, it's a bit of a puppy, a bit of a people pleaser. So what I've done, and hopefully this will copy and paste, is you can do custom instructions. I'm pretty sure you can do on Lovable and Bolt as well. In fact, let me put those links in the chat. Um, so let me put those links in here. Mhm. And just on the recap, I think they'll be recorded, so you'll be able to um, take a look at that afterwards. But I'll do a recap at the end, yeah, for sure. Um, so those are the tools, and then the the prompt tools are pretty good out of the box. But we found if we give it this custom instruction, hopefully this won't go over the zoom limit. Why can't I copy and paste that? Copy, paste. Oh, weird. I will get this across to like the recording page or something afterwards. But don't know why I can't copy and paste it, but you're just giving it some instructions to say, hey, like, do you do your work properly? So make sure you define data model, build component first approach, build a component library. Um, Again, you can watch the recording back and grab these, or I can um, send a prompt afterwards. But the overall the prompting tools are really good, but they need this grounding to make sure they don't just go a bit nuts. And remember that puppy analogy, they're kind of very keen just to go and do what they want to. So anyway, let's take this prompt here. So it said, hey, here's a detailed prompt. Um, Looks pretty good. It's saying, hey, you want a budget breakdown, savings goals, smart suggestion, call to answer. Um, yeah, that seems pretty good as a starting point. Um, so we can just grab that. Hopefully my copy and paste will work now. I'll just jump in here and there you go. That's kind of how easy AI is, and I'll go away and think about it and do its job. Um, So while it's generating it, another prompt which hopefully will copy and paste into chat that I use with real success is a guy called Jeremy Utley. I forget which university he's at, but he gave a really good prompt on how to use, asking AI how you should use AI. So I'll put this into the chat. I'm hoping this will work. Perfect. So this was a really interesting one. So, oh, I think it's just finished. Uh, okay, what's going on here? Okay, it's still doing its work. No, I'll just tell it to proceed. So this this is really interesting. What this will do, if you put this into ChatGPT, is it'll bounce a few questions back and forth. So, like, it asks me about my work, asks me what my goals were, and then gave me a few ideas about how I could use AI more in my workplace. Um, the two suggestions it gave, I was actually doing already. So I was able to go back and say, hey, give me a couple other ones. And it gave me a couple of really good ones. So if you're pretty early on, putting this prompt into ChatGPT will help it teach you how to use AI in your workflows. Or if you're even using AI quite extensively, like I am, it's still a really good prompt to bounce some new ideas. Um, so really, I mean, there's some messaging in the chat about prompt engineering as a thing. There's tons of really good prompts online, but also using AI to help write your prompts. Like you can just talk to AI and say like, "Hey, help me write a good prompt for you." Like it'll know how to use a prompt. So it'll go away, figure out how to do it, and then bring it back to you. Um, okay, so that's still going away and building our financial planner, which is very exciting. Um, just on these prototyping tools, what it's running. Lovable, Bolt, V0, they're all doing pretty much the same thing. I found V0 gets the best output personally. Lovable and Bolt are pretty good, but again, to my point earlier, you can take your prompts and really hop between the different tools, and it's a good way to kind of get around the limits of the prompting that you get. Okay, so here we go. So it's creating my financial planner. I guess I can change my, probably tweak the monthly income. Um, so it's got the salary, the projects, the expenses. I feel like it's a pretty good first start, just from, one prompt into ChatGPT and then in here. Um, So I think there was a question in the previous session of like, how do you get work experience? How do you get experience for a job when getting the job will give you the experience? Well, this is the kind of thing you can start doing. Like if you want to get a software engineering job, like you can do software engineering. You can use AI to write an app and upload it somewhere and get it on Apple. Like you can upload all these details to GitHub and publish it. Um, So I think, the advice would be with AI, like you can pretty much do anything now. It's quite crazy. Um, so yeah, again, that was just a quick prompt to show you you can build something quite quickly, quite high quality. Um, so yeah, I would encourage you just to go for it. Uh, so some key takeaways. I think using AI as really a teammate and not just a tool is going to be really important. Um, Learning when's the right time to use AI is really important. And then the real key one for me is using AI to write prompts for the other AI tools. That's just been incredibly beneficial. Um, I will pause there. I hope you've got time for Q&A and questions. Kim, we could start going through the chat if there's any questions there, or happy to take questions live as we go.
I think, yeah, so if anybody would like to pose a question, just put a Q in front of it and pop it in the chat. But I already have some, so I'm really interested in this topic myself. And I use ChatGPT quite regularly. Um, with that example that you just showed me, I find it was quite technical.
I just muted them.
Okay, good. Thank you. So with the technical one there, how important, if you're going to produce a technical solution like you just did then, how important is it that you understand the fundamentals of what has just been created? Because sometimes the results aren't perfect and you need to go back and modify them. What would you, how far does your skill level need to be?
I am a bit biased because I've been working for a long time, so I got a good idea of when to call BS. But what I've started doing is like the error message. If I get an error message, I'll just put it back into ChatGPT and I'll say, "Hey, I had this message. What's going on?" And then the AIs are basically talking to each other and just trying to fix it. So I don't really need to know if it goes wrong. Like on that app, I could probably go back to ChatGPT and say, "Hey, I can't edit the salary field. How would you change that?" And then ChatGPT will write a prompt for V0, and I just copy and paste it back in. So you're really just an orchestrator, like just bouncing back and forwards. Um, it's really just about using the tools to use the tools, if you like. Um, that's the big change there, I think.
Can you explain what a um, what a hallucination is when it comes to AI. For example, I've sometimes asked for things like, I need to know what the time is in the US when it's the time here, and sometimes it gets it wrong, and I know that it's wrong. And then you say, "Oh, you're wrong." What do where does this come from?
So I mean, technically, what's happening is it's fine. It's again, it's think of it like a puppy is trying to please you. So it's pattern matching and trying to find the right pattern to your query. Um, when you sense something is wrong, you can just call it out and say, "Hey, you got that wrong. Like, can you make sure you're using this information?" So to your point earlier, that is predicated on you knowing what is potentially going to go wrong. So you do need to know a bit about the domain to start with. But again, this is where the coaching comes into play. So you can call out to the AI that it's got it wrong and say to the AI, like, you got this wrong. How can we stop this happening again in the future? And it'll go, oh yeah, I did get it wrong. I was using the wrong source of data. I'll make sure I don't do that again. So it's that coaching mentality. You're treating it as a teammate. If you're coaching a teammate of how to do, how to solve a problem, you wouldn't keep accepting a wrong answer. You'd go to that teammate, to the human, and say, "Hey, like you got this wrong. Here's the missing data. Can you try again next time?" So again, it's that mental shift of treating the AI a bit more like a teammate rather than a tool, and telling it, "Hey, you got it wrong. Here's where you can go to get right information. Can you make sure not to do it again?" And in my experience, the AI will go, "Oh yeah, sorry, I did get that wrong. You're right. Here's how I get the right answer."
So there was a question here from Miss Watt, which was, so we're starting to ask AI about how to do stuff, but how do we know when AI is right or wrong? And I think we've just covered that then. There was another question here. Okay, we're talking some of this is quite technical in a technical field, but how can AI, and this is from Sophia, how can you use AI in the humanities setting?
So I guess this is humanities because it's everyone's gonna do this at some point. I actually used AI to write my eulogy, like what people would say at my funeral the other day. It's actually really, really awesome. So what I said is like, hey, help me ask some questions to understand what people would say at my funeral. And it gave me different prompts, a question to say like, how would your closest friends describe you? How would your family say you're defining quality? And it was actually really quite powerful in the end because it made me realize what the gaps are between where I want to be, like personally, versus where I am today. Like I wanted to really do more work with um, Indigenous communities in Australia. So it was like, hey, you should do more work here because you're not quite where you want to be. So like for the humanities, and I mean, I probably need some more specific examples of what your job is, but for me, I'm just using AI for everything, and just asking it questions, and again, coaching it, and again, if I got more specific examples of the roles, I could probably think of some ideas, but I don't think there's one area in my life where I'm not using AI as a bit of a sounding board at the moment.
That
Maybe I've become like the Borg from Star Trek and I've been assimilated, but for me, it's working really well.
that leads on to the next question here, which is, are there any resources that you could recommend to begin learning AI in order to grasp the fundamentals? So what would be your top three recommended tools?
Uh, yeah, so I think that prompt I gave before, and actually asking AI how to learn AI. So I would just honestly sign up for ChatGPT, and go on there and say like, hey, how should I use you? What are the topics? And it will create a personalized plan for you, based on your skill level. And just going to ChatGPT and saying like, hey, here's my skill level, here's my usage, here's what I think I want to use it for. Can you help me craft a plan? And it'll go ahead and do that. So that's the number one. Um, in terms of keeping on top of stuff, the industry is moving so crazy fast now. Like we have teams of people whose job it is just to watch going on, to watch what's going on. The keynotes from the main people who are doing AI, so Microsoft, Atlassian, OpenAI, like watching their, keeping an eye on their blog, subscribing for the blog, and keeping an eye on the conferences they're doing where they announce the new features. That's a pretty good one to get a general sense of what's going on. So I'd probably use those two, like using ChatGPT itself or whatever tool you prefer using, and ask it, coach it to coach you on how to use AI. But then, yeah, keeping across the blogs of the major players, your Microsofts, your OpenAI, that'd be a good way to keep track.
The next question here is from Daniel, and it's what is the biggest project or prototype that you have come up with, and how did AI handle it? So,
Uh, so I mean, probably Rovo itself, really. I mean, that's the biggest project that I've worked on at Atlassian. I think we had about 5,000 people working on it, and that was bringing kind of AI-powered search to all the customers we got. In terms of prototyping, they've more been conversation starters in work. So uh, just what we do in work is we have like a project posted to say like, hey, here's a general idea of where we want to get to. Um, and it's quite hard describing in words, so sometimes I might try and make a screenshot. Now I actually create a little working prototype. I don't make it all the way to completion, although you can do with some of the tools. It's more a conversation starter. Um, I'm not sure if that's because I'm cognizant I don't necessarily want to take my designers and developers job, so I don't want to build it all the way through. But also, again, I'm cognizant that different people from the team can have different inputs. So I know the designer is going to be thinking about accessibility when I've not necessarily looked at that. I know engineering going to be thinking about latency. So I don't tend to do crazy high fidelity prototyping personally. It's more just to get the idea across. But I know some people in work have built full apps that are fully working on the App Store. So yeah, you can go as far as you want to, really.
there's a question here from Faria is what underrated AI tools other than ChatGPT do you recommend for productivity and innovation?
Oh, that's a good question. Uh, I mean, I'm probably going to be biased, but I imagine probably a lot of people aren't using the Atlassian product suite and Rovo, and I think the earlier you're using it, the smarter it can get. So with Atlassian, it's got, the 20 years of history of the company and all of our data in there. But it means I can just ask it any questions about Atlassian. They'll give a really good response. So the reason I'm saying that is if you know, um, try and do something kind of analogous to Rover, where you're just putting all your ideas somewhere where AI can have access to it. So maybe it's your life goals or your CV or the jobs you applied for or things you're interested in, your finances. I'm just finding that Rover's ability to look through all of my Atlassian data, my Google data, my Slack data, it's just super powerful having it all connected. And it just makes it so much easier to do stuff. Like you can say, hey, what's that conversation I was in last week with this person? Or what's that person working on? Or what's the team working on? It's just, it, it, I, I think for me, it's been a little confronting in a way because in work, I can't get away with saying I don't know now because I can find the answer to pretty much anything myself. I just know how to ask the right question. So yeah, I mean, I'd probably say Rovo because a lot of folks probably aren't using it, but that's in the context of having all your work connected. But finding a way of making your workflow analogous to that, about having all your data across all of the tools and products you're using in one place, it's amazing how much more powerful that makes you feel when you can connect it all together and have one AI like looking across all of the tools. So yeah, I try and find something like that if you can.
We're just going to go back a little bit here. There's a question regarding is there a prompt language to say you got it wrong, or is it just thumbs up, thumbs down? So, what is I'll sort of maybe just rephrase this. What can you do to instruct the AI model to remember past mistakes, for example, to make sure they don't repeat those same mistakes?
Yeah, so one is you can remember and then make your prompt better next time. So I've done that a few times where I notice AI just keeps getting it wrong, and I'm like, okay, that's probably on me actually. I need to give it a better framework of how to answer a question. So one is like you can remember. Two, ChatGPT has got saved memories. Um, so I've just started playing. I tend to like video games that are just overly complicated. So I started playing one called Tap Titans on my phone, which is probably going to be a massive time sink. Um, but I can tell it how I'm getting on in the game and then like upload my progress and it saves a memory of where I am. And then future questions are based on the level I'm at. So like on the video game, level one, you're weak and can't do anything apart from kill rats, and like level 100, you're killing dragons and stuff. So ChatGPT is kind of progressing with me at the game. So you can use that analogy in different parts of your life, right? You can say, hey, like, hey, I'm looking for work. Now I found work. Now I've been in work for 2 years. And again, you're kind of coaching it and you're teaching it. Um, to the point about the thumbs up, thumbs down. Um, for me, again, I'm a bit kind of old and gnarled, so I tend to know when stuff's wrong. But if you're not sure, asking ChatGPT like, "Are you sure?" is actually quite powerful as well because it really makes it think about itself, and it's like, "Oh no, actually, I'm not sure," or "How sure are you of this response?" is quite powerful as well. So, um, again, it's what you would do to a human, right? Like if a human's coming to you saying, "Here's the response," you'd be like, "Are you sure? Have you thought about everything?" You just talk to it like you would a human, and it's obviously it's not human, but you can ask it critical questions, and again, it's that treating it as a teammate, not a tool, and coaching it. It's quite transformative when you start thinking about it that way.
There's another question here, which is about learning a new skill. And in reference here, it says Python, SQL, and Tableau, for example. And is there anywhere to practice those skills?
Uh, yeah, yeah. So for me, again, I'm using AI to learn tooling. So I had done programming, gosh, 20 years ago. And so I wanted to use a tool called Cursor.ai, and Cursor lets you actually build and ship code. So I connected up to the Atlassian code base, and I had never set up a dev environment. I'd never connected to Bitbucket, and I basically used AI to say like, "Hey, teach me how to code." I did have a human helping a little bit as well because there's some bits that I was just completely stuck on. But generally, AI was really good at teaching me stuff. And I've actually found AI now it's kind of my go-to for learning something. So as an example, I was doing an experiment recently and I had a set of metrics that I wasn't really sure what they meant. Um, and again, in Atlassian, we've got like all the experiments we've ever done are public. So I'm able to say like, hey, this is the experiment I'm thinking about running. Like, what are the metrics I could use that other people have done? What are some guardrails to look out for? And it's just able to look on that previous context and knowledge. So just making sure you can get set up that way of if you're learning something, I don't know, point it to Stack Overflow or point it to some public repository of knowledge that you can use to bounce ideas back and forth. That becomes really powerful. Um, so yeah, I again just use AI to use AI if you like. That's my main guidance. Yeah.